Welcome to SYNC-O-WICZ, your premier destination for election news and information. We are proud to present a brand new series designed to help you discover each candidate's platform. Join us where all candidates from all parties are welcome. Every candidate, every party, no filter. Let's jump in.
Hi, welcome to SYNC-O-WICZ Presents Candidate Spotlight. I'm Linda SYNC-O-WICZ. I'm the founder and CEO of Fight Voter Fraud. We are so pleased that our candidate today is Mark McComas from California, and Mark is running for the Board of Equalization. Welcome, Mark.
Good morning. Hi, how are you doing?
We're doing great. And again, we're sorry we had to get you up so early. Since we're on the East Coast, you're on the West Coast. So I guess the first thing would be letting your constituents know, what does a candidate for equalization do?
Right. The Board of Equalization is the agency here in California that oversees fairness in tax policy. It oversees utilities, insures alcohol and beverage, and it also oversees the 58 counties for tax fairness. The big piece of the Board of Equalization is the Franchise Tax Board, the major tax platform here in California. My district, which is District 2, is from the Oregon border to Ventura. It includes 19 counties, and it covers the West Coast all the way down some of the most beautiful parts in the country. So I will have traveled to every county from Del Norte in the north to, again, Ventura and Santa Barbara counties in the south.
Right. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background so they know who you are and why you're qualified to do this?
Thank you. I'm really finding as I'm a candidate how qualified I am. I have a career working in the federal government and in banking and loans. The last 17 years, I have been with the U.S. Small Business Administration and Department of Commerce out here based in San Francisco. And I've spent some of that working in Washington, D.C. and Los Angeles. But I have worked with literally thousands of people, thousands of small businesses. So I have seen personally how the Franchise Tax Board really affects these small businesses. With the Franchise Tax Board, if you get a letter, you have 30 days to appeal. That has really caused some problems with some of my small businesses. It's really unfair, especially if you're in a seasonal business, in agriculture or the holidays. 30 days to put your information together goes fast.
So what are your priorities, things, again, that you would change in your district?
Well, first of all, I would change the 30-day period to respond. I would take that immediately to 60 days minimum. Small business are the engine of California tax base, as well as the property taxes. There are 4.1 million small businesses in California. 1.6 of those are women-owned small business. The fastest growing segment, also Latina small businesses, are the number one fastest growing business here in California. What else I would change is I would really bring respect and accountability to this position. Being with the feds, I'm going to come up with two acronyms: FAIR and VIT. FAIR, F for fairness, A for accountability, I for integrity, and R for respect for the people that pay the bills. VIT, very important taxpayers. Very few of the legislators in Sacramento, and we actually have 120 legislators. There's 80 in the Assembly and 40 in the Senate, and then there's 10 elected state offices, have never even had a small business. They've never had to make a payroll, dealt with all the pressures of that. And here in California, we continue to push, when everybody needs more money, push it on the small businesses and the residents of this state. And that's just unfair. And that's where, if we can get this fraud under control here in California, and we're going to draw the line, we need to turn that money, because actually fraud is actually theft from taxpayers.
Right.
I
And
personally,
that's what I wanted to talk to you about. What are some
Yeah.
of the specific frauds that you've already seen?
Sure. I personally saw it live here while I was at the U.S. Small Business Administration. And it just was talked about yesterday during the JD Fraud Task Force meeting that I saw PPP fraud live. I'm a former bank loan underwriter, and I first came to SBA. I was a loan officer. I went to serve in Guam after a typhoon, and we helped the residents of Guam, the Chamorros, rebuild their homes after a typhoon. But my point here is I got brought into this during the COVID period of 2020, and I literally experienced it on the phones. I served for 4 months on that, and there were literally people calling me from the same phone number saying they were different businesses. And I took it to management. I took it to management actually twice, and they didn't do anything about it. They knew what was going on. Management, headquarters at SBA knew. But they said, Mark, keep going forward. And actually, yesterday in the meeting with JD Vance, you can go back and look at the tape. There was $22 billion that now is looking to be clawed back. And I've got to acknowledge Administrator Kelly Loeffler, she's the current President Trump appointee for the SBA. She has actually been here to California. I also would like to invite her to San Francisco, to Northern California, and I can give her a tour of some other fraud that I personally know of. I also was in federal contracting after I first came to SBA in lending, and then I came in under the government contracting program. I worked in the 8A program, which was the minority division for the federal government in federal contracts. And I personally saw a number of fraud companies with that. We call them fronts. I also went to management with that, and nothing was done. I actually filed an Inspector General report in 2019, and that was horrible for my career, because after that, it basically was, you had to deal with retaliation. I got put under investigations. I got put under some ridiculous investigations. I got put under investigation because I didn't sit in my specific cubicle during COVID. And in 2023, 3 years after COVID, we still were on a lockdown. So I actually went into San Francisco headquarters and I opened up the doors, because the federal taxpayers, all of you paid my salary. Thank you very much. I'm a public servant. And so I wanted to open the doors. But, it's just little things like that. We had one of the directors wrecked a car, and I asked that we fix the car. And, that was, you can't stand up for things. If you stand up for accountability, this was my experience at the San Francisco district office. Even the legal team knew about this stuff, and everybody just looked away. Now it's a little different game, I believe, with the JD Fraud Task Force. We've also got a real big hero out here in California. His name is Bill Asaley, who is addressing a lot of the fraud. He's been working with actually Dr. Oz on some of the hospice and the home care fraud, a lot of fronts. They're discovering like hundreds of fronts. Another person that I really want to give props to is a man named Nick Shirley, who I think has really been a hero out here in California, because he really was on the street in Minnesota proving that right. And he caught a lot of, I believe he received death threats. But
he still is. And he's uncovered millions, if not billions, in fraud. And I believe it was your state legislator that was trying to make it a criminal act to videotape or do any investigative reporting. I mean, that's how far they're going in California to try to cover up stuff that they shouldn't be doing, that they should be in jail for. But now with the changes that are going on, so you already know where the issues are.
I personally, I could do a bus tour of fraud out here in California with what I know personally. And just to get back to what you were saying, you're totally correct, Linda. You're out in Connecticut, so I really got to give you high marks for knowing what's going on out here. Yes, we have Attorney General Rob Bonta, whose wife actually is an assembly member and she has brought forward what's called Assembly Bill 2624. Some people refer to it as the anti-Nick Shirley Act, where heroes like Nick Shirley are fined and could possibly go to jail for disclosing fraud. Another little side note, I'm personally already registered. Nick Shirley will be here down in Silicon Valley on June 9th, and I'm already registered to go down and see him. But another thing that's really proven Nick Shirley, how correct he was, is I believe over 2 weeks ago, the FBI raided 22 companies in Minneapolis. So Nick Shirley has been spot on. He should be acknowledged as a hero, as almost a true public servant serving us. Because again, fraud is theft of taxpayer dollars.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, and just one little sidebar with Nick Shirley, he had also told us months ago how these protesters are the same paid protesters in all the cities.
Yeah.
And they're going around. I mean, they're being paid by Soros and a whole bunch of others.
Mhm.
So Nick Shirley is become an icon here in the United States by exposing the fraud. And also, as you talked about earlier, you brought a lot of stuff to the attention of your superiors during the Biden administration, and it was basically put under the rug, and you were the one they went after.
Right. I'll even take it a step further. I was actually threatened to push contracts forward. I remember specifically a joint venture that I was working on with one of the firms up right in Sonoma County, right north of me, that basically I was going to be written up for insubordination. The director at that time was Julie Klaus here in the San Francisco district office. And she threatened me that I had to have a recommendation on her desk by noon the next day or else. And I still stood up for my principles. I did have a recommendation, and I have documents. I have proof. I have all my documentation. It's been given to the Inspector General at the SBA. And guess what's been done? Nothing. And that's Tim Larson. He's another really unfortunate thing is we've had one Inspector General here for the SBA in Northern California for the last basically 5 years. You cannot do that. One of the largest federal contracting frauds in the history of SBA was actually right north of here in Lassen County. It was the Susanville Rancheria, over $100 million. It was with one of the tribes. That was exposed by another person I think has really been a hero here in America. His name is James O'Keefe. And
I know James.
James O'Keefe Media. I mean, he is, we have some really great Americans, and I call it the accountability tour. Or if I could start my own division, I would call it MAC, the McComas Accountability for California, or the McComas Accountability Commission. We've also got major fraud. When I was at Department of Commerce, I was involved in millions of dollars of grant funds, that come from DC. I'm the one that wrote the award letters for this money that goes to nonprofits, And it's really gotten out of control out here. Specifically, we've got a specific case right up at a college called Cal Poly Humboldt, where they are taking, I've got the 990. And listeners, the 990 is what a nonprofit must file, and it's an audited financial, And I just looked at the last years of Cal Poly. They're receiving $14.1 million of federal aid. They're receiving, I believe, 6.1 from the Small Business Administration, from Kelly Loeffler's group. And actually, Kelly Loeffler just cut this funding off in Minnesota. And so again, with respect, and I look up to Administrator Loeffler, but I would like to invite her out here to come see me. I know I could come back to the federal government right now and continue to make things right. I still have a badge. I worked under oath. I have a federal security clearance. So my point here is getting back to the amount of the fraud that's going like to Cal Poly. We've got funds going from the Department of Agriculture. That's Brooke Rollins. They're receiving Department of Defense funds from Pete Hegseth. If Pete Hegseth knew about this, I can't use the word, I want to be a gentleman. And they are not conforming to any of the federal compliance guidelines in terms of, because they're still doing DEI, legals are still receiving legal services. They're using these all for their identity politics special programs, which is complete non-compliance. I'm considered an SME, subject matter expert for this. I stand behind every word that I say, so hold me accountable for what's going on.
Right,
We will stop the fraud.
Right. What we want to do is make sure people get out and vote for you.
Thank you.
And I believe it's June 2nd. Is that when you have
coming fast. Actually, shameless plug here. June 2nd is my birthday. So if nothing else, yes, vote for me for a birthday wish. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. You would be phenomenal on the Board of Equalization in District 2 in California. Right. You are the type of person that Californians need. So we want to encourage everyone to get out and vote. Don't think somebody else is going to go and, just vote. You need to go, not only yourself, but we're also telling people they should use the buddy system. Bring somebody with you that is a U.S. citizen over 18 years old and is eligible to vote in your specific district. Yeah. Those are the 3 qualifications that Linda, we want.
Those are great points. Also, what I'm doing is I'm working the phones hard right now. I think I'm down to, I have 6, maybe 5.5 days left. I'm down to hours, like 140 hours or something like that. I'm reaching out to all of my contacts and connections. I'm actually texting them, and I'm going to have a picture for you of that, of the ballot. There are 6 people running for this office. There are 4 Republicans. And I'm asking this to text it to minimum 10 friends, or maybe putting it on their Facebook and really trying to help me, because I've worked with a really small budget. Financially, I'm not a rich man, but what I am wealthy in the federal government and all of you taxpayers have paid for. I have extensive training. We tried to fight fraud. I personally tried to fight fraud because I vetted all of the contractors that we wrote the contracts for, and I vetted them yearly. We had what's called an annual review. So every one of my contractors had to send in their corporate tax returns, personal tax returns, if there's any structures, whether they were S Corp or LLC. I vetted them every year to make sure that they were in compliance, because really what else I want to do is I sort of looked at myself as a fiduciary. And that's why it's so important that we have people like Mike Gates, who's running for Attorney General, Herb Morgan, who's running for Controller, because we need to, I was just with them personally last night in Saratoga, California. We need to move Sacramento from fraud to fiduciary. We need to move Sacramento from slick talk to straight talk. We need to move nonsense to common sense. We need to get back to the old school ways of accountability. And furthermore, I grew up, my father was FBI, and I watched him. We had accountability in my house 24/7. I'll tell you what. Not only have I vetted by the federal government, I've been vetted by my father my whole life. He was amazing. I got to learn a lot from him. In the FBI, you have what's called operations oversight. And it's really about following the money. That's when you get down to the straight talk of that. Yep. It's when money goes out, there are conditions on that money, and it needs to be followed, and there needs to be full accountability to know where that money goes. But right now, it's going in California, it's going to these nonprofits. And if you hear 501c3, watch out, because what they've become, and this is not my term, this is a term from Linda McMahon, who is currently the Secretary of Education, a woman who I have personally met. She was the former administrator for the Small Business Administration under Trump 45's administration. I tell you what, when you shake Linda McMahon's hand, she looks you in the eye, and you don't forget shaking her hand.
I know Linda McMahon, and through the years, yes, I do. I know her personally, and she is phenomenal.
Yeah, she is like a hero to me, because also, furthermore, here's where I got to acknowledge the Trump administration is Linda McMahon has Cal Poly Humboldt up north of here under federal investigation. Because they also, not only are they misusing federal funds or not in compliance, they allowed riots up there by the Antifa folks during all the Palestinian riots. And really, we're basically attacking the Jewish community. They even took over the major administrative hall up there and nicknamed it Antifa Hall. I mean,
Um,
I was just up
there's
there personally. And
Yeah, I was gonna say
listen,
they're so blatant with everything they do. Well,
yeah,
right now we're gonna be wrapping this up, and we just wanna know what your final thoughts would be that you want your constituents to know.
okay. What I want my constituents to know is when I take office in Sacramento, I'm going to come in as a public servant. I'm going to come in viewing myself. I am not a certified financial planner, but I want to come in as a fiduciary to the citizens of California. And I'm going to look at your tax dollars like it's my last dime. And I promise you that. We must stop and draw the line in California on this fraud. We must, 100%. And we need good accountability. It's an old school word. I also, on the campaign trail, I wear a Ronald Reagan t-shirt sometimes, and it causes great reaction. People love it because they're talking about the old days, where there was good old school accountability. The thing is we must take a stand right now, 100% California, and get back to what we were doing. One little quick fact also is in my portfolio at the Small Business Administration, I probably had over maybe a dozen to 15 companies leave. They sent me an email saying, "Hey, Mark, you're a great guy, but we're leaving." They went to Nevada, Texas, Tennessee, Florida, Arizona. You know what the common denominator is with all those states? State
No.
taxes. With state
Okay.
taxes, okay? And so state taxes are the reason people are leaving. So
Wow.
listen, Linda, thank you so much for giving me this privilege to talk to you today and really get my message out to Californians and also to Washington, D.C. is thank you for the J.D. Vance Fraud Task Force. We must take a stand and clean things up because California, you deserve better. Thank you,
That's
Linda.
right. And thank you so much. People in California, we need you voting for Mark McComas this coming June 2nd in California. And everyone, thank you for watching SYNC-O-WICZ Presents Candidate Spotlight, and we'll see you next time.